Hey YouTube, it's Navy Hacks coming at you with a exciting new video on real estate investing for the service member. Service member came at me and said, hey, bought my first home for $80,000 using my VA and I found a duplex for $60,000. Is there any way I can get this with zero down? And the answer is yes, but no. The easiest way is going to be to use your VA. There's going to be a few steps and finagling that's going to have to take place before you can do that. First thing you would have to do is refinance your VA loan with a non-VA program. And then your mortgage company will have paid off, therefore satisfying the VA, and your VA will be free and clear. After that happens, you could purchase the property for zero down, but you would have to occupy that residence. Another option, you could keep your VA without refinancing it and use another program to buy that house, but you would have to qualify income-wise, and in order to do that, you would probably either have to list, not sell, but list your current home with a mortgage or a real estate agent. I did that on one of my houses. One of the requirements is that my house had to be listed for sale to obtain the loan. So what that did was allow the mortgage company not to calculate that mortgage payment into my debt to income ratio. I didn't end up selling it. I went to the real estate agent who sold me the house. I knew him. He was like, yeah, I'll list it. He drew up the papers. We signed it. Technically, it was on the market, but I never had any intention of selling the home. Is that morally wrong? Probably. But I knew I was making money on it, and it wasn't an issue for me. So there's an option. Another option is put 20% down. Well, that's like 12 grand for 60,000. But one of the cool things is about when you go to a bank and they keep the loan in-house. They originate it. It's usually going to be on a 15-year adjustable rate mortgage fixed for the first 5. When I recently bought mine, the seller was giving us cash back. And what happened was it just got deducted off of our down payment. So when I applied for the loan, this may be a fluke, but they didn't ask for any bank statements. They didn't ask for a driver's license. All they did was pretty much gave me a financial statement and said, hey, fill this out. And I wrote down I had, 15 grand in the savings, and then I had another 5 grand in my bank account. But I don't think they had any way to verify that, actually. So I could have just been blowing smoke. I could have said I had $100,000 in the bank, and they wouldn't have been able to verify it. That being said, it's not the bank I bank with. It's a different small town bank. And later on, a conversation got brought up to her that she didn't have a copy of my driver's license. And she was like, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to do that. I was like, yeah, and you didn't ask me for any bank statements either. She was like, yeah, I know. I was like, okay, whatever. But the deal was already done. That's, sometimes you just get lucky. But the point is, if you buy a $100,000 house and then the seller gives you $20,000 back, I don't know exactly how that works, or if a lender would go for that, but maybe they would. Then you have to meet the appraisal income and all that stuff. Back to my $15,000 down payment. Me and a buddy went in halves on some properties, and when we closed, our down payment was like 28 grand and closing costs and all that stuff. But when we went to close, we actually had to pay like 12 grand each, so it was really 24 grand because the seller gave us 4 grand back, and it worked out. But they could have gave us 15 grand back. And the appraisal came back at 144, and we paid 128 with 4,000 back to us. So in that case, theoretically, the seller we could have just gave her a higher price. So instead of offering her 28, we could have offered her 35 or even 40. You could have asked for 40,000. Could have paid her $40,000, and then she gave us the rest of the money back. And theoretically, the bank wouldn't have known, and it would have worked. The closing company is going to be able to tell you how the money is dispersed and when the bank actually knows how much you paid and all that stuff, because you don't give your down payment to the bank, you give it to the closing company, and then the closing company disperses money to the bank, and then that's where that interchange could happen. So say you get $30,000 back, but your down payment's only $20,000, you could pocket 10 grand, which the closing company would give you, and then 20,000 goes to the bank, and the bank doesn't never know. All they know is they get their 20 grand and they're fat, dumb, and happy. So that's that. Another thing that's kind of cool is you could happen to stumble upon a mother-in-law suite or a house that has like a studio apartment, separate living quarters, and that is always a plus. I bought for all intents and purposes, it was a 2-bedroom house, and that's it. As far as taxes went, it was a 2-bedroom house. As far as the lending company knew, it was a 2-bedroom house. And what I did was, they had this huge foyer that they designed to be like their office or something like that, and it was literally probably 20 feet wide by 45 foot long, and it was a complete addition to the house. And they moved their entryway to the door over there, and what I did was I just threw up a wall right down the middle of it. There was already a closet in there, don't know why. Threw a wall right down the middle, made the half of it a larger dining room and the other half a bedroom, and moved the door to the original position in the house, and it was like, voila, 3-bedroom. So that boosted the rent by another $250, and it only cost me like $1,400 to have a contractor do it. And the office that they'd used was for a shop that they had in the back. Wow. It's a huge shop building, and in the shop building they had a small living quarters. Awesome, right? So this property is zoned multi-residential, has a huge shop with living quarters in it. All it was a small studio apartment, but I rented it out for $350 a month, and the only thing I had to do was put carpet in it. And the cool thing is I pulled the carpet out of the main house and put it in that little studio. The guy charged me, I think it was like $120 to put it in there. And underneath the carpet in the main house was all hardwood floors. So it was like win-win. I bought a house with carpet, got hardwood floors, and then took the carpet and put it in the studio. And then I rent the studio out. That's part of the shop. It's on a separate meter. All I did was call the city, and they gave it a new address because it already had a meter. Now, the aspect of getting the meter put in may be a totally different ballgame. If you're not zoned multi-residential, it's going to be impossible. Unless you have that shop that's an external building that doesn't look like a house and then you turn it into a house, you may be able to swing it that way. But other than that, it's not going to work. When you're using a search engine to look for an investment property, when you go to realtor.com, that's what I use. It's pretty accurate. Trulia and Zillow and all those guys, they're a little slow on their listings, so sometimes something will be off the market and it'll still be on there saying it's for sale. But I use realtor.com. But lately, what I've been doing is I've been finding my stuff on Trulia, I think it is. They have a search feature, and that comes in handy when trying to find like an extra unit. One of the cool things is I'll search like studio or outside entrance or extra and see what comes up, and it'll just bring you up listings that have those keywords in there, and then you'll find them like that, or rentable or rent or stuff like that. You'll find some stuff like that. But when you're searching, at least on realtor.com anyway, it automatically searches single family homes. So when you're looking for a multifamily unit, you have to actually click that. And I didn't know this but that's the way it works. And a lot of the investors that are out there just starting out are looking for multifamily homes and investment properties and stuff like that, and you won't be able to find them because they're under that category. On the flip side, you may be able to find a house that has an extra rentable unit that you wouldn't even have known about unless you really dig and look. It's like, oh, you really gotta look at those pictures and be like, oh, what's that in the back? And it doesn't say anything in it on the description. It doesn't say anything searchable. It doesn't say anything at all. There's just going to be a picture, and those are the ones that are hard to find because they have to be in your price range, and you actually have to go in and look at all the pictures. So, but this is Navy Hacks Out, and I hope that this is giving you some insight on buying your second home or multifamily unit.